Welcome, everybody. It looks like we've all been having some problems with understanding week 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us to the dynamic here, to the worksheet, and then we'll try to see what happens as far as how to explain the various things that you have to put into it. So go to, of course, the course. Takes a minute to get in here. And then, of course, from the course menu, switch down to learning modules. And then, of course, wait for it to load. And then we're going to come up to, we are now in module 7. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So here is kind of what we're doing. Now, this is going to be your planning worksheet for what you'll be doing in week 8. And for some of you who have had trouble writing a thesis statement, you can probably do most of this. And you may have to come back and, you're going to have to write your thesis statement somehow and try to, get this in. Now, the brainstorming section is fairly simple. Just answer these questions. Now, there are 3 historical lenses that could be applied to your topic. Describe what 3 ones you think could be applied. There are a lot of them that are out there. There's the economic, political, and of course the social. But you could, there are other things that could be used, like probably military, depending on what your situation is. So use those 3, describe them, but also mention how each can be applied to the topic. That's the second part of the question that sometimes people forget. And then take one of those lenses that you have just talked about and identify how that could sort of change your perspective. For example, if you have been doing a paper on the Constitution and you've been talking mostly about the economic issues at the time, you could switch over possibly and say, okay, but if we just focused on the military aspect or on some of the other problems that were going on at the time, that would be another thing that you could put in there and say, hey, look, Shays' Rebellion is a good example of some of the problems that were being focused on here. So, and if you just looked at that perspective, how would this change your view? And then, of course, these are some of the other things the other questions that you have to answer up here. I know they don't give you a lot of space, but try to fill them in as you go. And some of these questions now, the last 2 questions are mostly subjective, but not 100%. Discuss your obligation as a citizen of your society to understand the history behind issues that impact you every day. That's pretty subjective in many ways, and so something that, and it's very prevalent, even it's very pertinent, even into some of the today's events and so forth. And so that's the part. Now, when you come down here, this is where you have to start looking at, how you're going to put this together. So in the 1 column is where you're going to put your slide text. That is what the text that you would actually put on the slide. And remember, like I said before, when you look at the week 7 and week 8 suggestions, don't use speaker notes. Don't, because I can't see them. It doesn't help me. I can't see them to grade your paper. So, I want to be able to see them. Visual and audio ideas, we'll talk about that section in a minute. But for the slide text, what are the 3 lenses you're thinking about using, and what's history's value in using them? Or what's the value of learning the history and so forth. This is kind of general. It doesn't have to be too specific. You'll get specific as time goes on. My topic, that is where you put your thesis statement. This is where, I love this. Yeah, don't you love it when this comes up? I'm going to save it so we won't have to come up with this anymore. Okay, I didn't intend to do that. Okay, come on. Don't you love it? I'm sorry about this, guys. So just save it when it comes up. By the way, we didn't, But anyway, the next section here, the three historical lenses. Now, this is where you name the three historical lenses that you're going to use. Okay, you're not going to talk about them specifically. You're going to name them. This is where you might put, define. And then the first lens would be the social lens. Now, you've already defined it up here in this section, but down here in lens 1, you're going to talk about the social lens, how it applies to your topic. The second lens, political, how does it apply to your topic? And make sure it's economic in this case. So your second lens would be the economic, and the final would be political. But these are all how they do fit to your topic. The other part is the historical narrative. How does using these lenses help you understand the historical background and narrative of the time? You'll have to read a little more in module 7 and 8 for this, but how does using these three lenses help you understand the situation more than it is? If you only ever looked at one lens, you would never quite understand the full complexities of the problem for, the day. And so you want to make sure you have them. How it affects our lives, that's another thing you're going to put in there. History's value. What's the value of understanding history? This is where you'll want to go into why it's important to understand past history, and so you can function in the present. You can't go forward without understanding how you got there. It's like driving a car. When you put it in reverse, or when you put it in forward or drive, you can't get it. You've got to be able to take it out of drive or realize how you got there. Does history repeat itself? That's where you can give your opinion. Does history repeat itself? You'd want to look at module 3 or 5 regarding whether it repeats itself, whether from the course. I don't know. This is very subjective in many cases, but, overall, does history repeat itself? I don't think it can repeat itself 100%, but I do think that it can have very stark similarities. We can point to various things over time, sort of repetitive things that appear that are different, but appear the same. And then, of course, are citizens obliged to know history? I think they are, but if you don't think so, well, tell me why, or tell me why they should. Now, for each section here regarding the slide, go back to your slide and visual ideas. What I would recommend is this. If you can't find a picture, that's fine. Put in some idea or description for a picture. In your final project, don't use audio. The reason I say don't is that it doesn't always transfer well. It doesn't always upload very well. I don't hear it. And it's a lot of effort to put it in. And so I'm trying to help you by saying, don't put the added extra effort in. Put your added extra effort into writing the slides and making sure that they make sense. So, for the visuals, put some suggestions. Don't, audio ideas. If you have some audio ideas, that's fine. But if you can't find them and you can't put them in here, which is fine. If you can't find a picture, write me a description of a picture. Okay. And then, of course, you can save it when you're done, and then upload it to your assignment. Let me know if this helps, and I'm looking forward to seeing how week 8 will come out for a lot of you.